and welcome to Abnormal Investigations. Tonight, I have two special guests with us. We have Jordan and we have Jason that's going to be joining us tonight, and they're going to be talking to us about this CE5. And I'm not even going to pretend like I know a lot about it because I don't know a whole lot about it. And they're going to be explaining a lot of it to us. We're going to have some questions. We got a pretty good panel tonight, and I think it's going to be a very interesting ride. And I think it's going to show you all that there is, if you will, other dimensions and other things out there. No matter what you may believe they are, they do exist. So after the countdown, guys, we'll kick this off and we'll get started. How are you all doing tonight?
Doing great.
Doing great, thank you.
Are y'all ready for this?
Yep.
I think I'm ready for it. Yeah. I'm ready to learn something. If I can get my computer to cooperate with me. There we go. We'll get Lisa in here. There we go. Okay, so Jason and Jordan, y'all, you're going to have to teach me a lot on this one tonight. I'm just going to ask questions as you go along. I'm going to let you all kind of explain to us what you do and what it is.
If it's okay with you, Jordan, I was going to start kind of like with my intro,
Sure.
and then kind of where I met you, and then if it's okay, you kind of take over from there, if that's cool.
Go for it, man.
Before I get started, I do tend to kind of rant off. I'm going to do the best that I can to stay coherent with the story. When it comes to the subject of UFOs and ETs, I've always had a lifetime interest. And if you want to discover further down, I've kind of have like a family kind of situation that I wasn't fully aware of till like I was an adult. But fast forward to adulthood, COVID happened, and a lot of people had time on their hands at home. And I'm watching a YouTube channel that I like to watch on UFO videos. And it mentions Dr. Greer's CE5 documentary, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And I had already seen his previous documentaries. And even though I had interest, I didn't have strong enough interest to further seek into that work. But when I watched the documentary, it was life altering. It really changed me as a person. And so after I watched that documentary, I knew that I wanted to pursue CE5. I was really nervous to tell my family members and my wife and so on. So I waited for a few days, and then finally I broke it to my wife that I wanted to pursue, basically trying to contact extraterrestrials. And I know that sounded strange at the moment, or at the time, excuse me. And So finally, she was okay with it. And a few weeks later, I did, and I wrote down just so I can kind of stay coherent with it. It was May 18th of 2020. She was out in a movie theater with a friend, and my kids were at home. And I wanted to do my first solo CE5 to kind of get used to the protocols. So I was in the trampoline in my backyard. This is in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I'm doing the meditation, which we'll learn it later about. I'm doing the meditation for the protocol, and in the middle of the meditation, something told me, "Open your eyes." So I opened my eyes, and there was a triangle of lights above my head. It did of white lights. It did a quarter turn and disappeared, and then a red flash had went screeching across the sky. So I ran inside to. I was very scared, and I ran inside and I called my wife and I texted her, that what had happened, and she didn't believe me, of course. And then when she came home that night, I kept pleading to her that what had happened was real, and that I wanted to pursue it. So the next morning when the kids woke up, I told them about it and told them that I wasn't too sure what was going to go on, but as things showed up, not to be nervous. And so it was after that, it was June 6th of 2020 when I did my first group CE5, and this was in Bluff Landing campgrounds in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I was there with another woman who had previous experiences with extraterrestrials and UFOs, so she gave me a lot of comfort. And so even though I have a little bit more detailed memory, my notes say on that evening um, that we saw 10 or more craft, mostly orbs in shape. One was oval, change in direction, stopping and waving, disappearing, flashing back at us, which was common that evening, turning on and off, uh, turn on and off where you could see the silhouette, which I think I spoke with you guys before about. And then the last craft stayed with us the whole evening. And then fast forward to July 10th of 2020 is where I went to Sequoia State Park. That evening, I was expecting to meet one individual. And so I'm meeting these individuals at a Quick Trip gas station. It was kind of a little sketchy even then, even now, sometimes it kind of seems like a sketchy thing. But I'm meeting this woman, and she's there with another male, and I get another text saying, "Hey, I'm also here. I didn't expect a third person to come with us, or yet alone a second." So that's how I met Jordan. We went to Holbert, Oklahoma, or Sequoia State Park, and that evening, we saw multiple craft. We utilized the protocols and tones twice during the contact experience. The first craft appeared to look like a super dense white cloud, but the ship kept moving like a water balloon in slow motion. Plasmoid in appearance, and some may say red, white, and burnt orange orbs appeared. One appeared within 40 feet behind me, moving from my right to my left, only able to capture the sight over my left shoulder, appearing to be the size of a basketball, like a miniature sun. First time witnessing a craft materialize above us, electronic in appearance. Was lucky enough to get some film, and some of that film is on my CE5 YouTube page, Jason Montenegro CE5 Broken Arrow. Jordan, I don't want to bore everybody to death with that stuff. Please take over, dude.
No, it's cool. You're doing great, man.
Oh man, because
You're
I
good at
feel
talking about this. Keep going.
all right, because I wrote the CE5 experiences not for too long from 2020 till 20 excuse me, I stopped in 2022. So I had only wrote those for 2 years, and even though we've had some experiences since, this doesn't encapsulate it, but it has a lot of the ones where we had the teams.
So just a quick question, maybe a couple of questions so far. Whenever you saw the craft, would you say that craft was military from here, or would you say that it came from somewhere else? And also, Was there any noise associated with it?
I'll let you answer that first, Jordan, if you don't mind, brother.
So yeah, if you're referring to the first night at Sequoia State Park, absolutely no noise. You know, it's tough to know with what you see. You know, there are talks of like TR3Bs or whatever variant outside of that that the military may be operating, and we don't really know. You know, but I think a lot of what we've seen totally exceeds the technology that, you know, we think the military might have.
In that specific experience, I do not believe so at all. So when you learn about this a little bit with the coherence with your mind and your heart, that reverberates to me like out in nature and so forth, and kind of like everything around you. So you kind of like, I know it's a hippie thing, but it's like you kind of feel the vibe in the air. So it's like it's a very like loving feeling, if that makes any sense. I know it's one of those things you can't measure, like science, like in a materialistic view for the scientific mind, but for like the hippie and the adult, or like the child and the adult, you feel like a good sense, if you want to say that, about the individuals that are on board and what the visit is for.
What do you okay, so have you I'll put it to you like this. What do you believe the individuals on board are, and have you had contact with them or seen the individuals that are on board these crafts?
So like I've had varying levels of contact. The majority of it would technically, I guess, would fall like under like telepathic in essence. I think when we had like a pre-interview, I've only had like limited like visual experience, if you want to call it that. A lot of times within like in a meditative state. For instance, one of the meditative states I recalled where I had a visitation from something not normal, was in this meditative state. I saw these three lights that were in front of me. I couldn't see them with my visual eyes, but when I closed them, I could see them and sense them as like balls of energy, and a few of them shot into me. And then another experience I had where I was in a meditative state early in the morning, and when I opened my eyes to come out, I saw a blue hand make a circle, like the circle game. I don't know if you guys recall that growing up, where people would show you the circle below their hips or below their waist. It was pretty funny to me. And then one experience I didn't bring up to you guys before in the pre-interview. This happened on Halloween, and I was doing a solo CE5 in my backyard, and I had done the protocols where I came in contact with some individual, and they were back there with me, and they touched my leg and left. It was quite noticeable. I kind of let them know that it was okay. I thought it would be more of a physical, like I was able to see them, but I was only able to sense them touch me, and then it walked off. Um, One of those things I didn't mention in the notes from my first CE5 group experience is that me and the individual, we could hear sometimes we could hear individuals walk around us, and we figured that was part of that was going to be normal for us. That hasn't happened since, but that was the first time that I had done CE5 with another person, where beings were walking around us because you could hear the footsteps. You couldn't see or smell them, but you can hear them. They were very close to us.
That's really interesting because I had one time I was doing an investigation to where I was out at a location, and at this location I could feel a presence around me. It's hard to explain, like a heaviness. I felt like I was being watched. While I was there, there was a large rock, probably about that big, around softball size, that was thrown into the creek by where I was at. I could hear walking because it was in the fall, and I heard it walk past me, and I actually have it on video where you can hear the walking, but you can't see anything. You think that's kind of like what you experienced? Because I mean, I could hear it walking, and you could tell something was there, but there was no visual. I couldn't see anything.
Yeah, absolutely. That was that. So that was even covered in the documentary. That was another reason I didn't freak out, because Dr. Stephen Greer talks about the different ways that they'll contact you, either through craft or they'll materialize there. They may be able to communicate through walkie-talkies, scintillation of lights, messages like telepathic messages.
Like
There's like
mind
very
speak?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So.
No, that's okay.
But this is actually where I would like to refer to Jordan, because even though me and Jordan met like this, Jordan actually kind of extrapolated the research into multiple layers that I didn't expect. Definitely involving the spirituality aspect of it.
Yes, I don't even know where to begin with that or exactly which direction you're going, but basically, like, prior to me getting into this, I had what, would be termed like spiritual awakenings that kind of came in spurts throughout my life that kind of turned my world upside down. So when I found this, part of it was trying to find answers to experiences that I'd had. And there definitely is a lot more to it. It initially, it really blew my mind and excited me to find that even though we're told there's no other life out there, we're communicating with something, right? And I don't directly know who all we communicate with most of the time. Um, there's been times, I saw obvious crafts, right? But then other times it's just, like a light that gets real bright and then goes out in the sky, or shoots across the sky, gets bright, goes out. I'm not convinced that it's all ETs. I think there's a lot more going on out there, from fairies to who knows what else.
That's interesting that you say that. About 2 years ago, I have never seen anything real weird in the sky up until about 2 years ago. I noticed that in the northeast and northwest at about 2 a.m., I live in northeast Oklahoma, there was these balls of light, and I noticed them. At first, I thought they were airplanes, and while I was watching them, I noticed that they seemed to chase each other, kind of like they were chasing each other. And I thought, man, that's odd. Airplanes don't move like that. And then they would like get really bright, and then they would fade out, and then another one would get really bright, and then it would fade out. And they would do this for a while, and then maybe a week later, they would be over into the northwest. They would change from northeast to northwest. And then I got to thinking about it. These are areas that I do nighttime investigations at, that I have a lot of encounters. I do cryptids, which, I'm under the belief that the Nephilim, so forth, the fallen angels, etc. And I was like, is there a connection? Is this why, are these lights drawn to these areas for a reason? Is that why these are hot spots? I don't know. I mean, what y'all think about that?
For me, it kind of leaves me with more questions than answers, honestly. And then Jason, what do you think, man?
So there, I don't want to go on a rant here. It could be varying things. This always comes up. It's like, hey, what's that? What's this? So one of the things that I love about Jordan is that one of the more simpler explanations for the whole phenomenon is that a lot of us are looking out to see it, but they may already be here. So we may be witnessing parallel universe or like a parallel dimension that we're living, side by side with on this planet, if you will. Um, so that kind of gets a little convoluted in a sense, but um, so kind of, I guess I'm kind of losing track of thought here, but like in the process that we're doing, um, I'm like, when we do CE5, it's like actively trying to communicate, correct? But sometimes these entities, whether it being extraterrestrial or interdimensional, or like kind of like a mixture of both, or even future human, it just kind of it shows up, and I don't really know what to make of that, to be honest with you. I kind of feel like that's out of my purview, because my little process is just my little niche, but there's multiple ways of going about it. I got into this because of Dr. Stephen Greer, CE5, but as I got further down the road, I learned about other modalities of contacting beings beyond the normal, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I started learning more about this from Ron Cross. I know y'all probably know him, and
Yes.
that guy is very intelligent, really good friend of mine. He, talks about quantum physics and, a lot of things that I was having a discussion with him, and we had noticed, in the cryptic world that most people that have a cryptid encounter, approximately 25% of them will have a supernatural presence that will start happening. Like there's a connection. A lot of people, Scott Carpenter was one of the gentlemen. He started having cryptid encounters. He started allowing them to mind speak with him. They would mind speak. And then he started having supernatural occurrences in his home. One of the things he would have in his kitchen would be when he would get up, he would have like footprints in his kitchen, but they would be like water, like somebody had got out of the shower or the pool. A lot of weird things, but it seemed like they were there was a connection between the two.
I kind of feel like really it's a remembering. With that, so we're always taught that, I've got to see it to believe it. But it almost seems like that's inverted. Once you believe, you begin to see. And kind of like what you're discussing there, once you see, more and more encounters keep happening.
I don't know. I kind of feel like sometimes, and I may be wrong, guys. I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm just learning as I go, but it feels like when I go to the woods, it's almost like they know you're looking for them when you're looking for them. And then there's times that you can go down there, like if I go fishing, right? And I'm not really down there looking to investigate or to try to get a reaction, or it's like, I mean, sometimes they'll bother me, but a lot of the times it's like they kind of understand, like, oh, he's not down here tonight to interact. But then other nights I go and I am down there to interact, and we're doing, the lights and the calls and everything. It's like it really amps it up.
I believe they mark people. Like if you have an encounter, you have more encounters, something like that.
Go ahead, Jordan, because I didn't want to interrupt, brother.
No, go on ahead, man.
So to what you had just mentioned about the marking, there may be some aspects of that with the whole abduction aspect of it. Yeah, a big part of that too is the mentality of it, and kind of it mixes both of this together. So like for me, if you're not having fun with this, it's almost like pointless, because it's kind of like a vibrational thing, if you want to call it that. So the weight of expectations is really heavy, right? Even in your normal life. So why would you want to put so much burden on something that's supposed to be like a peaceful and loving thing? So you kind of have to be childlike to do this in essence. I do. I didn't. I hope I'm sorry that I didn't reiterate that earlier, but you do kind of have to be in a good mood. So a big part of before we go on site, I do play a lot of music on the way there, like Bee Gees and Madonna or whatever. You know, just kind of like lighthearted music. I can go on and on. I have 1,500 songs. No, excuse me. I have 1,300 songs on my playlist. I'm
Oh
really
wow.
big into. Yeah, I'm really big into it. But to what you were saying earlier, maybe the mark there could be physical, but definitely emotional and psychological. You're definitely not the same. And some people, there's like I would say like there's a bigger group where it's a positive change, and then there's going to be a smaller group where it's very negative, and then there might even be a smaller group than that that's where it's almost like a denial situation. Like they'll never come to terms with it, so they don't really deal with it. And that's okay. Everybody has the right to respond to life, you know, however they want. But with everything coming out, you know, I think it's really important to talk about and to explore. I'm always going to be a big proponent of this. I don't want to bore you guys to death, but long story short, I really want this to be a normal thing for society in order to advance us. But I don't want to like overtake the podcast. What kind of questions you guys have about that?
No, you're doing great. I think the more you put out there, the better, because there's going to be a lot of people that's going to have a lot of questions, you know, just like I do. I don't think you're going to bore anybody at all, because I mean, it's all new to me. And, you know, it's interesting because no matter what people believe, because, you know, I've learned by doing this that people are going to have different beliefs. Some are going to believe that they're extraterrestrial. Some are going to believe they're demons. Some are going to believe that they're Anunnaki. But I think the point is, no matter what you believe it is, it's there. And you know, that's the common denominator, I guess, if you will. It doesn't matter what you name it, it's there, and it is interacting. And it's, you know, when you talk about, you know, what you do, you're a lot braver than I am, because one of my fears has always been the movie Fire in the Sky.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
You know, I mean, do you ever worry about like maybe being abducted when you do that? Or do you ever, is that something that ever crosses your mind, you know?
Jordan, go ahead, because I don't want to overtake on that one. Go for it.
For
Brother.
me, no. I don't know. There have been times where I sensed I was in a situation I didn't want to be in, and I left, right? But, you know, back on what was said about marking, you know, that's one way to look at it. But for myself, you know, I go out with an open heart, open mind, and kind of to add to what Jason was saying, you know, be in a good state vibrationally inside your own skin. And it seems like the universe responds. I know, like Jason mentioned, the CE5 protocols, and that's what got me into this. But I noticed over time, just going outside in a good place inside myself, and it seems like, you know, interactions begin to happen. So maybe it is like being marked, but at the same time, I think they can sense, you know, kind of what's going on inside the people they come near.
That's kind of what I was wondering too. Is it a marked, or is it they know that you understand that they're there? It's easier for them to say, "Hey, this guy knows we exist," you know, compared to a guy that may not believe it. They say, "Okay, this guy's open to us," to where this guy may not be open to us. You know, it's easier to communicate with certain people.
Definitely. And it's so interesting because I've heard stories where, and it's even happened a few times in groups where we have two people, one person sees something, the person right next to them can't find what they're describing, right? So it's just so neat that I don't know if it's those that are meant to see, or maybe you're in the state where you're open to it and you do, but someone else may be like in a state of fear or doubt, disbelief, and maybe that's why they don't see when they're standing right next to someone that does, you know?
And Jason, before we get away from the subject of abductions, um, at the end of our pre-interview, you mentioned that your father was an abductee. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So let me preface something before that has a simile to it. If you guys are familiar with the story Capturing the Light documentary with Dorothea Isaac, where she was constantly visited by orbs in her home, I strongly suggest you watch that documentary. Fast forward to a similarity with my grandmother in Esteli, Nicaragua, where she was born and raised and lived her life. She had multiple encounters where these orbs of light would constantly visit her. And then growing up, I didn't know that story until like I was an adult. But my father always spoke about having different encounters with UFOs and extraterrestrials. What was so odd is that fast forward to the future, some of that stuff that he spoke about that involves esoterica, if you want to coin it that, was stuff that he was telling me as a young man, maybe around between the ages of like 3 and 6. But some of his abduction experiences happened quite frequently where he would have a lot of missing time. Sometimes he had where he was on board a craft or was on another planet. He would constantly talk about Andromedans, or a lot of beings of light would communicate with him. I guess another term would be Lyrans, or beings, feline beings would come and communicate with him. Um, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. There were probably what would be considered like Syrians, or beings from Sirius, where there were like blue beings that have visited him. Those are like really common ones that he would speak about to me. Um, and then he would speak about to me about the vibrational shift going from 3D to 5D, and that he had knew about that was something that was going to happen. He knew about the, I guess what you would describe now, and I'm not going to have a deep dive because that's not my niche, but he knew a lot about the Orion Wars, and of course I'm listening to him as a little kid like this is ludicrous, correct? Um, and uh the thing that really kind of that translated as I got older, I would hear a lot of grown-ups talk very poorly behind his back, and so I knew the subject was kind of taboo. Of course, me being young, I wasn't weighed down with the taboo cloud, if you will. At that time, I just thought, oh, this is a very interesting thing. We're not alone. It wasn't a weird thing to me as a child. It just seemed like it only became weird because adults didn't seem to were very odd about the subject. So it seemed like something I wasn't supposed to talk about. And
So you've known about it your whole life then?
oh yeah, and
About,
then I don't even mention that it also happened on my mother's side. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, my friend.
oh no, that's fine. So your interest in it, you think is because of your dad's experience? Probably.
I would say until I got into CE5, it was a novelty that I just kind of kept as a shelf. You know, I'm watching the documentaries and the movies, but I'm not taking it serious because I'm like a person with the head in the sand, not really taking things life serious and not understanding the ramifications of reality, if you want to call it that.
Hmm.
But I definitely had a wake up call when I started this.
It's almost like it picks us, you know. I started cryptids because my mom and her mom and family, they grew up and they was always at their house. I grew up, you know, as a child staying at my granny's house and dealing with it. And I got the fascination of, you know, what are they? Why are they here? What are they doing? Why, you know, why are they coming up to the house every night, every night? And y'all remember when the crop circles happened, you know, a long time ago? We actually had one of those that happened at my grandpa's house. Had no idea how it happened, why it happened. It happened in the pond. The pond was an old dried up pond. It was full of cattails. There was nothing out there. Grandpa had already got rid of all the hogs and everything. He'd retired, and we would just play out there. But one morning, man, there was just, you know, a perfect. I mean, couldn't have been more perfect. Right in the middle of the pond, and everything was laid the same way. And we were like, wow, you know. But that's kind of, how it all kind of, for us, it all kind of went together. But to get back to Jordan, because I know the audience is going to want to know, and they're going to get me if I don't ask you. What was the time that it felt scary to you, and what happened where you felt like you needed to get out of there?
It wasn't anything huge, just, and I mean, this kind of happens to most everyone. You just get like a uneasy, not like a nervousness, but just that feeling in your stomach, and your body gets a little tense and it doesn't feel like it normally does. So in my mind, whatever's causing that, it's time to go.
Whenever this happens, whenever you all do make communication, do you feel like it's the same ones, or is it different ones every time?
For me, really quick, I feel like it's different ones. There were, in the first 3 times I contacted whoever, there was these really vibrant red ones, that felt like it was like the same civilization, and they felt like the most excited. And in the documentary, or in the movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Steven Spielberg, you kind of see something similar to that in the ETs, especially in the ones in the very beginning that acted just like that. It was very spot on, that little movie, on some of those things.
That's interesting, because I did have a it was a weird encounter when I was a child in my bedroom. There was what I described to my mom and them, a lady dressed in a red gown, and she came out of the closet and lifted up my head. Now, I believed in the tooth fairy at that time. I was a younger kid, so I thought it was the tooth fairy. But it wasn't like it was supernatural that lifted my head, if that makes sense. It was, I felt the physical hand. Like I could feel it under my head, lift my head. It wasn't like my head just lifted. And I experienced her several times in my bedroom.
Do you recall, like, to this moment? Do you recall, like, her face?
I never looked like up toward her face. I slept in an old time. My dad was an antique collector. So I was sleeping in one of the old hospital beds. It had the cranks at the bottom. You could crank the feet up, or you could crank the head up. And I just remember, because, when the tooth fairy comes, you're not supposed to look at her, or you don't get your money. So I was kind of out of the peripheral vision. I was watching this, what I thought the tooth fairy walk up to the side of the bed and lifted up my head, except for the next morning, my tooth was still there and there was there was no money. So, but after that, it happened several times. Some people had moved into that home. We ended up talking to them. Oh, it was quite a while later. I was probably in my 20s. Me and my dad was building. My dad built houses. We were building a house, and this guy said that his daughter did not like to sleep in this bedroom in the house that we used to live in, because there was a lady in a red dress that would come in there and bother her. So I kind of looked at Dad and I was like, I told you there was something in there,
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was about to give me the creep. I've worked on some of those in nursing homes before, many years ago.
Oh, so I bet you're probably familiar with Northeastern State, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You probably heard the stories out of there then, huh?
No, I don't know those stories.
Oh man, I've got some buddies that were correctional officers over there, and there's a lot of things go on inside of there, even still to this day. The old graveyard is just right there, right beside the old hospital, and they don't even maintain it. It's pretty sad, but it's an eerie feeling over there. So you talked about the triangle thing. I've actually saw that. Uh, are y'all familiar with Ulagal Lake?
Sounds familiar.
I am.
Okay, it's up here in northeast Oklahoma. I was fishing with my uncle one night, and we would do a lot of nighttime fishing out on the boat. And it's just a little V-bottom boat. It's not a big boat. And we were sitting out there, and all we had was one old lantern, the old kerosene pump lantern, the one you'd pump on the side, and that's all we was using. And we were sitting out there fishing, and at first, I guess we thought it was a satellite because my uncle said, "Hey, do you see that satellite?" Because sometimes when you sit out there in the dark on the water, you can see, the satellites. And I started looking, and I was like, "No." And then he said, "Well, I don't think that's a satellite." He said, "I think it's a military jet." Well, when it went over us, it kind of looked like that the stealth bomber, if you would. It kind of in a weird way, but there was, like what you all said. That's why I asked if there was sound. There was no sound. This thing was totally quiet, and just like a gust of air. It just went over. It was so weird.
Can I interject on this story really quick, Jordan?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I didn't get to tell our official, for me, and because Jordan was there with me, our official like triangle story. This is for my 34th birthday, and for me, I like to party. So I was like, hey, let's get an Airbnb in Tahlequah. Let's go do CE5, and then after that, we're gonna go party, and it's gonna be awesome because it's a place that had jacuzzi and a pool and everything. And so we go there. Jordan had to drive 3 or 4 hours to meet me, and we meet at this Airbnb. We go out. Leading up to the C5 there, I had never been there before, but I kept looking through Google Maps at the topography, and I kept looking at this field that was called Dakota Public Use Area. It was right next to Sparrowhawk Campground, and I had been there many times over the years. And so we meet up the group. It's me, Jordan, one gentleman, and another woman. We go there, and I'm sorry, I'm going to try to fast forward the story, but we go right before we start CE5. We see a craft coming in. We communicate with it. We have a short 48-second video of it on my separate CE5 YouTube channel, CE5 Jason Broken Arrow CE5, and you can hear me, Jordan, and these other two individuals talking. But anyway, so that sucker passes, and we're like, hey, let's still do our protocol. So we're in our meditation, and one of our group members said, hey guys, open your eyes. And we see this gigantic, I don't know how to put numbers on it. It's definitely the size of a football field, if not bigger. This gigantic silent triangle that had 3 red lights and then a red light in the center. And this thing was humongous. I want to say it cleared from skyline to skyline within a matter of, let's say, like 8 seconds, maybe 8 to 10 seconds. But
It was
well,
fast.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
No, go for it. I'm just saying it was moving fast, man.
It just creeped us out, man, and we knew like that's not ET, man. And we were like, that was the first and only time in my little time doing this that I felt that this is us, and I was freaked out.
Yeah, I think didn't it have a tracking light too,
I believe so.
if I remember correctly.
Maybe it was
airplanes
like two
typically
small
do.
antennas, like two small antennas that kind of have like a small flash or something.
I believe
But
so.
it was just the whole entire moment was shocking because I'm like, there's so many things I wasn't fully on board even in early stages of C5, but slowly, little experience after another, I've learned like a lot of the stuff that you would not believe is true. It's absolutely true. For example, some of these crafts are like essentially like a bio nanotechnology. It's essentially like a sentient being that you can communicate with. As opposed to the beings on the board. It's very interesting. It's quite fascinating. It really is like a living being in every classical sense.
So, if you can, when you communicate with them, what is some of like the conversations like? What have you visited with them about? What has been some of the most intriguing conversations you've had?
I'm gonna relay Jordan to this because they seem to communicate with him a lot more in detail. For me, they're very short, like, "Hey, bro, how you doing?" You know, like they're really surface level. But with him, it's kind of seems like a lot deeper.
So I don't know if that's really the case, but I've had like channeled messages, we'll say, come through a few times. And it was just like a little bit of guidance with things that I was doing. Um, it's taken me a while to kind of accept that that happens. And I doubted myself so much when messages would come through, whether you want to call it telepathy, mind speak. And I pretty much convinced myself, oh, I'm just making stuff up, you know. But there have been some very direct messages that kind of had to do with things that were happening in my life at that time.
Have they said like why they're here, why they are communicating with us?
I haven't asked, you know, I don't really, you know, we haven't had like full-fledged conversations. Usually it's just, you know, boom, message comes through real quick that has to do with something that's happening in my life there. Now, one time, I was told that they were Pleiadians, but outside of that, you know, I don't know about the others. But they're not really like two-way conversations, if that makes sense.
So it's
So
kind
do
of like
either
whenever
of you, sorry,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
do either of you feel like they're a threat in any way?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
And they've always been here, you know.
So go ahead.
So it's kind of like whenever you, and I may be wrong. I'm trying to understand. So, like, say you do a C5 session, it's kind of like when they show up. It's not like a phone conversation. They show up, and then sometimes you get a message, and then they move on. It's not like a back and forth, right? Am I understanding that right?
Mm-hmm.
So there have been some like short conversations that I've had where they outside of CE5 where they had communicated that they were going to make a short visit. One of those was with my son in the house. It was the best way I could describe it in my sense, and I don't know, maybe documentaries describe it. It was like a tuning fork. I felt like something was like I was getting tuned essentially, or primed for tuning, and it said, "Hey, we're going to be outside here in about 2 minutes. Grab your son. We're going to say hello, and you know that's going to be it." That's all they said to me. So I'm like giddy. I grabbed my son. I was like, "Alex, you're going to lose your mind." So I grabbed him. We wait outside, and this light craft was above our house for a moment. We waved to it. It waved back to us, which is really like I tell a lot of common folks, like if you ever see an extraterrestrial being or a craft, if you're nervous, just wave, and they'll usually wave back to you to let you know that it's okay. So that was our short. That was one of the few telepathic experiences I had. Another one I had where they said, "Hey, Jason, hearing about at this specific time, I think it was like 10:40 something in the evening, that when you go outside in the yard, you look to the right, that they were going to be behind an airplane, and they were. And I dragged my wife outside with me to come look at it, and of course she was in shock. But they didn't. Besides those short conversations, they haven't had many. Then there was I believe I may have like an 8-minute video of it where they told me that they were going to be outside for a little while outside my home, and I have a short 8-minute video of that. Well, it's not short, but it's on my YouTube channel. But besides that, it hasn't been like anything about like formulas or anything about self mastery or anything of use. But I feel like this process is like the very beginning of it, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why I kind of push for it, because I feel like it'll eventually lead to open communication about exchange of ideas, how to help us get forward in life. So I'm sorry I kind of took over that, but go ahead.
Oh, no. I love it. No. So whenever you see them, you're not seeing a body, right? You're seeing like a craft or an orb. It's not like somebody standing behind your building, just so people can understand.
Yes, most of the time they're orbs. And then there's another aspect, and thank goodness for Jordan, because he's 10 times the researcher I can ever be. There could be also an aspect where they could be what in the spirit people in the esoterica were called a Merkaba. So I don't want to get too deep into it, but basically, we all have a body of light, and a Merkaba is essentially our body of light that are like two inverted tetrahedrons or two inverted pyramids. So sometimes these extraterrestrials or these beings will visit us in their light body, which is essentially an extension of their consciousness. And of course, one of the hard aspects of proving that is like, well, do you have film? Well, like a lot of it is, a lot of it is light. Um, I don't want to bore you to death, but there's a few different ways to kind of tell what is what. A lot of times when a Merkaba is filmed, you can kind of see like sharp edges, and sometimes when you have like a plasmoid craft or a light craft, it can show in varying ways. One of the things I challenged the scientific community with a lot of the UFO footage is to use a light spectrometry to see what the lights are made of. I hope that one day they'll utilize that, because that would prove a lot of the film that we have within our stock on the planet, because those lights would not be made on this planet if they were made on another planet using another form, essentially. And you can tell that with light spectrometry. That's how we can tell the different gases and elements across the cosmos. But I don't want to bore you guys to death with that. But yeah.
So would the way that they're seeing you, would that be kind of a form of astral travel or astral projection?
Absolutely. So a big part of this, a big part of contact is within the meditation or within other modalities. You're essentially connecting as one within the universe or within the greater consciousness, um, awakening within deep space and trying to communicate with a civilization or entity or being or what may have you, and basically introduce yourself or your team and invite them. Uh, and just invite them with love, essentially. Just kind of be like, hey, this is who we are. We would love to communicate with you. And then when I spoke with you guys before, and I would be happy to talk about it, within the Dr. Greer CE5, they do this thing within the meditation called coherent thought sequencing, where basically after you introduce yourself to the civilization or being or craft, you show them where you're at. So you basically astral project or show, or however you want to coin it, the Milky Way galaxy. You show them, or you zoom into a third to the outer arm of the Milky Way galaxy, where our excuse me, where our a planetary system, where our solar system is at. You show them the Earth, and then you show them where you're at on the Earth. That's why it's a big help to kind of know the topography of the area, because they love specifics. They love to know exactly what the area looks like around you. It's you can come down to the very minute details, and that does help. Of course, you with other modalities that doesn't seem as important, and that's okay. I'm not a stickler for like you have to do it my way or this way. It's just the way that I like to do it. It was the way that I learned. And then of course, like Jordan mentioned before, sometimes you just walk outside and these beings or just kind of show up. It's because you're kind of in a constant state of love and gratitude and so on. But I don't want to bore you guys to death with that also.
Oh no, you're not. I have a question for both of you though. So you said that they were interested in your son and said hello to your son. Have they been interested in any other of your family members? And Jordan, have they been interested in any other of your family members?
So, a few of my children have had sightings like outside of them being with me. They've gone out with me before as well. Um, and my wife is right alongside me when we do this. So, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So it was imperative to show my wife that this was a reality, because I didn't want her to put me in a crazy house. So, because I was having flashbacks of the movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I loved that movie growing up, and I didn't want to look crazy. So I'm like, I was like, I have to prove this to her. So I took her to a CE5 in Keystone Lake. I actually have film from that one. and it was just incredible. It was a to me it was a godsend because I needed her to know that. And then later down the road, I took my two oldest to a CE5 in Stroud, Oklahoma. That's I would say that's a spot that we have frequented quite a bit. There's a few other spots in the state, but that's one that's perfectly in between me and Jordan here. But yes, my older children, my daughter too. Thank goodness that she was there that evening. But it was a great confirmation. So one of those things earlier, back to the familial thing, my father told me that a being had told him about my older two children, that it was important for them to understand these different aspects of the cosmos. So I don't always hunt down kids and tell them like, hey, you got to learn about this stuff. But my older two, I definitely told them like, hey, there's life out there, and it might be important, to kind of pay attention from time to time. So that kind of all fit together. But so yes, my family is open to this, and then my youngest is autistic nonverbal, and we're kind of exploring that whole entire possibly being able to communicate with him down the road, to him be a speller down the road. I hope. But we could talk about that some other time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. That's like, yeah, it goes deep. So is there like techniques and stuff or locations that you find are more effective to make contact with them, like better places, uh, better techniques, maybe?
So for myself, my backyard seems to be the best place, and I'm out there pretty much as often as I can. I started with a technique and then kind of shifted away from that. Um, and yeah, I just kind of go out with an open heart, open mind, and see what I see and try to communicate with. Um, but yeah, Jason.
So I always try to stick within like a general formula. So usually when I would do a lot of the group C5s, I would notify the individuals that were interested. I would notify them about 2 weeks ahead where it was going to be held. For example, like let's say we were going to go to Keystone Lake, I would show them the area that we were going to do the C5 at Keystone Lake, within the hopes that they would kind of learn, either go on Google Maps or kind of or whatever, to kind of learn the area. And then the day of C5, um, we would meet up at a Quick Trip or a gas station to make sure we would get supplies, food and water and so on. And then we would drive to the location and maybe setup will take about 20 minutes, half an hour or so, give or take. And then a lot of times I would try to do, like, if that's, especially if they're strangers, just kind of like do a little small talk to kind of get to know who they are a little bit, how they got interested and so on. Kind of get a little feeling of who they are. And then if I have a little bit of time, I will try to play a little bit of music, kind of loosen up the mood and so on. Um, and then we will go into protocols. So the protocols, they'll hopefully people get to learn more about it. So the way I learned it was you would play these tones. Now there's varying different tones, but you would play these tones over a speaker and use walkie talkies. The reason that I continue to do so, and I hope I'm not veering off too much, is that there has been a few occasions when we would do CE5 and some tones would be communicated back to us that wasn't from a radio station or a normal whatever. It was a communication from another civilization, essentially. Um, and I solely regret not recording some of those, because that's happened a few times to us. Um, so you play these tones over. It's about 5 to 10 minutes. You play these tones over this station, over the remote control, or excuse me, the speaker and walkie talkies, and then you go into what I would say is the C5 meditation, or the coherent thought sequencing. So in this meditation, you basically, like I mentioned earlier, it takes about 20 to 25 minutes. You go into this meditation. Towards the end of that meditation, you awaken into deep space. You introduce yourself and your team to the civilization or the UFO or the extraterrestrial, either through astral projection or I like to use what I would call like a feeling or and like empath, or just kind of like try to sense it the best I can with my heart, essentially. And then you let those individuals know that we're trying to essentially communicate in a peaceful manner with them. And if they would like to, that we would like them to visit us so we can communicate. At that point, after you let them know your intention, you show them how to get to where you're at. So we would go into the meditation, and everybody does their best to go into coherent thought sequencing, where you're showing them exactly where we're at within the cosmos. Um, you do that several times. I don't know, maybe up to, because you kind of do it in a loop. And that's the best technique, if you want to call it that. I do it from where I'm constantly zooming in, bam, bam, back out. I'm zooming in, bam, I'm back out, because I'm doing the best to basically put out the signal, essentially. So so you have a spiritual aspect of it that Jordan, I would say, is more well spoken about that. And then to me, I have essentially kind of something that would fall into like the metaphysical aspect of it, because I see the universe as a brain, and I'm trying to send out the signal to the rest of the brain exactly where I'm at within the cosmos. I don't know if you guys are really into that, but there's a major prevailing theory that the universe is essentially shaped like a brain. So I've always thought about that. It's like, okay, well, I'm trying to send out a signal to the rest of the civilizations. Hey, we're here. Come and communicate with us if possible, if it's safe for you. Um, so after that, that's the end of like the protocol, if you will. Now, how they show up or how they communicate is like a rainbow. They can come in your dreams. They can show up in different craft, whether it be plasmoid or light or metal. I've seen different colors. I don't know if I've covered, but the majority of them are orbs. But I've seen different colors like blue, red, for an orange. A few times I've seen green, on a few occasions pink and purple. But that's to be. I hate to elaborate, but that's the majority of them. And then the one that really was really cool that stood out was the Sequoia one, where it looked like a balloon. That was dope. I don't really know how else to say it. And then the close. There's been a few varying distances, but basically that's CE5 in a nutshell. Is that you're doing your best to communicate with extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings within within a positive light, within universal peace, essentially. And I can kind of go into that. There's like prerequisites for that, but I don't know if you guys want to learn about that or not.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm open to hearing it all. Actually, I was wondering, you was talking about the astral projection, and I don't know a lot about that. I've just heard a little bit about it. Is it true? Whenever that happens, is there really what they call the silver cord? And are you, if you're able to do that, can you? Are you not limited? I guess I should say, to only visiting with them, but can you like visit other places on Earth or elsewhere? Is does it work that way, or I don't understand how it works? Kind of, I'm just trying to figure it out.
So I've never noticed a silver cord. Um, and yeah, you basically just project your consciousness where you want to go.
That's why I kind of refer to Jordan. He has more experiences with astral projections. Um, I've had one or two experiences where I can verify that with my consciousness, if you will. But when I'm in CE5, um, man, a lot of times I sense it, man. It's just like a feeling in the air, like a goosebump, you know? Because I can even feel the connectivity to the people in the group, especially when you're having a good time and everybody's like really really into it. I think a lot of times, and we've spoken about this too in the pre-interview, about the importance of the group dynamics, and of course how that can change over time. But man, when you're doing it with groups, it's like spirituality on steroids, man, because you feel it in the air, man. So it's like sometimes it's like it doesn't matter what you're sensing, because you could feel that you have like a mega gun, but it's loaded to like communicate with whatever is out there. It's pretty amazing. When if for individuals that want to engage in this, you will sense that, and it's beautiful, and I hope you get to.
So you have
So
different experiences based on the group you're with?
Oh, absolutely. And Jordan, please elaborate. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all, about your frequency and vibration. If you're around people that are in a lot of fear, um, you might not have the experience you would if everyone was excited and happy and in a state of love. And to comment on what Jason said earlier with the tones that were played through the walkie-talkie, and you also asked earlier if, they're anything to fear. We had an experience where we had our kids with us, and we're kind of in the woods in the middle of nowhere. And especially my kids were terrified being out in the woods, like, oh, animals, blah. And while we were doing the meditation, I heard his walkie-talkies make noises that I've never heard, which was really pretty neat. And then we didn't see anything. It's said that they'll only come as close as the most scared person in the group is comfortable with, and we saw exactly that.
Wow.
That's really interesting. So is the astral projection, is that the same as remote viewing? Are those the same thing?
So I'm not the most qualified person to answer this.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I know for myself, my experiences are more so like, okay, my wife and I play this game at times where she's at work and, I'll close my eyes and, take myself to where she is. And then I'll text her after and be like, you were in a hallway. This is what it looked like. And more often than not, I nail it, which is pretty fun. What exactly you would call that, I do not know. But I know and get confirmation that what I was seeing is where she was.
So it's
If
kind
that
of
makes sense.
telepathy. And were you always that way, or did it develop?
I think I was always this way, just I tuned it out. And it took me a while to realize, just kind of how simple it was to actually do that. Again, I think it's more remembrance, and I wasn't ready for it before,
So do you have to know where a location's at to be able to go to that location, or can you, like, say your wife was gone when you got home,
Mhm.
and you knew that she was out shopping, but you didn't know exactly where she was at? Would you be able to find her, or would you need to know where she was at to be able to go there?
So I should be able to find her. Again, it's just something we play around with every now and then. I haven't really experimented a lot with it, and it's still kind of a newer thing. So, but now that you mentioned that, I'm definitely gonna play around with it more and see.
Now, that was kind of interesting to me. Being able to do that, because I mean, being able to do that from looking at it from my perspective of doing the boots on the ground in the woods, trying to figure out, like, I went out last night and investigated. I was out, it was right at an hour. I think it was like 56 minutes I was out, and I got 3 vocals that, well, it kind of makes you, like what you all said, it kind of makes you feel kind of crazy. But when I heard them, the first thing that came to mind was that was a human. Okay. But then I start processing and thinking, and I'm like, there's nobody over there, because I'm in the middle of the woods. There's a swamp full of snakes, full of snags, full of briars. I mean, this place is nasty. And they're not using a light. I get three whoops, and I'm not able to get across the creek over to where whatever is doing this is at. I'm not able to see it. But I was thinking, someone that would have that ability, would you be able to say, go to that area, and would you be able to explore that area easier and differently than I could? Like, could you traverse it easier?
It'd be interesting to try. Now, with this, I think it's, something that all of us can do. Just we've convinced ourselves we can't. So, if you believe you can't, you can't.
That's
Um,
true.
That's really interesting to me because I mean that could really open the door to finding a lot of things that you can't find physically, that because we have barriers when we're in the woods. We have, like I said, the creeks and the briars and the cliffs and the drop offs and all that kind of stuff. So do you find when you all do that, do you have better encounters when you do it in groups or when you do it solo?
Jason?
Oh, so I would say it varies, my friend. But I personally enjoy group. If you refer back to Dr. Stephen Greer's documentary, he was in that situation at first where he was taught these protocols, and he was doing it by himself, and then he came to a point where it's like, hey, this is kind of pointless if we're not showing people how to do this, right? And that's kind of where like the scientific or materialistic mindset or medical mindset comes from. It's see one, do one, teach one. So I'm like, well, every opportunity that there's a group, you can, if there's a new person or somebody's interested, you can show them how to do it. And if you're lucky, you have a fantastic experience, and then also kind of give them like an act, like a feeling of normality to it, which I think is going to be the initial hump that we're gonna have trouble with, because this is still out of the this is still not quote unquote normal. But hopefully that's what we're here for, to kind of help people out with that, to not get to essentially to let them know to not freak out. So yes, you can do it by yourself or with a group, but I feel in my heart it's much more profound to do it with the people you love and enjoy doing, having time with. But of course, back to the whole what I mentioned earlier about group stuff. Sometimes groups dynamics just kind of fall apart, and I think down the road, and this is kind of a prevailing thing that comes up in conversations. I think down the road, maybe there'll be an organization where there'll be like a big, like essentially like a crowd, not a crowdfunding, but like a conglomeration of individuals that they can form off and do different groups in the same area, and then be able to come back to the same hub, and maybe they could form different groups, because sometimes it just doesn't work with certain individuals, and you may not know that. So sometimes you kind of have to experiment essentially. But if you find a solid group that you notice that you have a lot of positive experiences with, I would say I would do my best to stay with that group. But of course, it doesn't happen all the time. Excuse me.
So I definitely love both. It's great doing it with a group, and it's nice to have confirmation of other people. Sometimes you wonder if your eyes are playing tricks on you, and it's just nice to have others that are like, "Yep, saw that too." But for the most part, I usually just go out solo, either by myself or with my wife out in my backyard. And like I was saying before, it seems to be one of the most active areas, and I don't go into it with protocols or anything. Again, I just go out with an open heart, open mind.
What is your like? Do you have a long-term goal that you want to achieve by making contact with them? Is there like a something that you like? What do you want to come of it? I guess is what I'm asking.
I'd like to meet more of our family, and learn anything that I can. I find it very interesting, and really just learn anything I can.
I had a different reason or a different goal at the very beginning, and then the one thing that really hit me hard, and it's also, thank goodness, is talked about more often lately, when the notion and the realization that some of this phenomenon is future us. Some of this phenomenon is us, down whatever the procession is, more than likely 12,000 years down the road, maybe even sooner than that or closer in time than that. Um, so when I thought about that and I thought how profound that was, I thought like, well, this is the very beginning of that. Like, so I was like, we have to start doing this and being open to this and teaching young adults and children that this is okay. That you don't have to hide from this, and it's not this negative thing that's been shoved down our throats growing up, that you have to be scared of these entities that are obviously can harm us and haven't. So where's the proof of the negative aspects of it? So that was like a big proponent pushing for me. I would think about that for months, even years, where it's like, if we don't do this, they don't. If we don't do this now, they don't get there. So it was like a big push. It was just like, we have to be proactive. This was like definitely something that, like a protester, or like a civil activist, and that was a big, like, Stephen really instilled that in me. If we're not like actively doing this, like, how are we going to get our progeny to where we're interstellar civilization? So that's my goal, is to get this normalized to where we can communicate, we can share ideas, and we're learning more and more with our own sciences about the different modalities and the different stuff about lights, which I'm not going to bore you guys to death with, but we're learning more and more stuff about just even the simplest stuff of elements, and how how we're all interconnected with consciousness. But if we make this normal, oh my goodness, our whole world is going to be incredible. Because when you learn that all you have to do, besides these protocols and so forth, is to actually treat each other with love and respect, you're going to see the whole entire thing change. Because a big part of the whole entire CE5 thing is humility also, because you get a visual just like, hey, you are not number one. Um, your problems are minuscule at best. You're not apex around here, and you're gonna have to get along. You know what I'm saying? And a part of that is to also learn to love yourself, and to learn to love the people around you. So little changes along with that. So that's my long term goal, is to change society into a more loving society, to where there's an exchange of ideas, to where we will be able to traverse the universe within love and within world universal peace. And then this will be like a normal thing, and then our civilization will evolve spiritually and materialistically in essence, but within alignment that we're all getting together, because without that, that would be problematic.
That kind of leads me to my next question for y'all. You kind of took me right into it. Uh, has doing the C5 projects, has it changed your beliefs or perspectives on life?
I'm not sure if that's what did it, but I've had wild experiences, especially over this last year. Maybe uh, starting with the protocols and meeting Jason is what kind of kicked everything off. I'm not quite sure, but um, yeah, belief systems have totally been, upended, shifted around. I have a much greater understanding of myself and everything else, and I think it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
That was my question too, Mike. That if your goal was an effort to not only heal yourself in a way, but to heal the planet, humanity, um, help with your own spiritual self development and understanding, is that the goal?
I would say absolutely, absolutely. Yes, that is a big part of the contact, and also the self mastery aspect of it, which I didn't know when I first started CE5, but it is definitely part of that. Healing the planet, healing ourselves, which will extrapolate to healing our future generations and our past, generational trauma that came with us, and there's different modalities to go about that. Um, Back to earlier, where you can go back to where earlier we were speaking about astral projection, or what's the other term that they like to use? Anyway, when you can astral project to a traumatizing event in life, see it for what it is, and kind of, and see the lesson from that and move on from that. There's different modalities to go about that. But yeah, we do need
That's
to
interesting.
get past our problems if we're going to survive. That's a big part of that too. Um,
Healing generational trauma. That's interesting.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's different modalities about that. I would refer to Jordan to that. But essentially, you can. I believe in a lot of times too. Like let's say, for example, these ayahuasca experiences or the DMT experiences where these entities show you your problems and essentially you work through them or these individuals work through them and it kind of like I mentioned earlier will heal some of those generational issues and just kind of so I'm a big believer that excuse me that your ancestors are still around. None it's kind of hard to tell if you know your future generations are around at the moment, but definitely your ancestors are around, and some of the things that they went through kind of pass along to you. You may not know about that, and I'm not going to bore you guys to death with that. But when you learn to heal that, it also elaborates to where you're not taking that on, and that's talked about in different science about like different trauma carrying on in your DNA, and I think that's part of our experience when we're here to kind of learn heal ourselves and forgiveness is a big part and I'm not the expert on that because I still have issues that I'm working with through myself.
Hmm.
You know, I think
So
as
in
we
the
heal. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say, as you work on yourself and heal yourself, you know, I feel like it raises your frequency and vibration where you'll start having more of these interactions, or at least that's kind of how it happened for me.
So in the astral projection, are you only able to astral project in the present, or can you astral project into the future and into the past?
Man, talk to me in 6 months because that's a great idea. You know, of course, I can, you know, go back and see things that I've experienced. I don't know if you'd call that astral projection. Um, you know, like with what I do with my wife, I like that because I can get confirmation, you know. But yeah, I'm not really sure. Now I know, so I am a hypnotist and I specialize in past life regressions. So with that said, you know, I basically help the client relax and connect with other aspects of themselves to make sense of whatever's going on in their life now. And I've had clients that have seen past lives, parallel lives, and even future lives. So with that said, you know, it sounds like you definitely can.
That's very interesting. So I got another one. Do you believe the technology? I'm not going to go deep in this because I know YouTube won't let me go real deep into this, but kind of hit on it. Do you think that maybe the technology that our government uses, do you think maybe we're getting some of that from them, that they have a better communication with them than maybe we do?
Um, Personally, I think we are the tech, right? So even though there may be others that, you know, have things that they use in benevolent or malevolent ways, I don't know. I really just, you know, maybe it'll get you for a little bit, but I think you hit a point where your frequency and vibration is high enough where you can't be touched, right? And then back on us being the tech, you know, it's like people talk about med beds. I believe that we are the med beds, right? And you can spread that out over other things as well. You know, there's been people that have been documented with bilocating, where you know they're seen by other people in different areas, and they're being studied somewhere else. Um, you know, again, I just think we are the tech. We've just been convinced that we're not.
So my little tidbit on that is that yes, there have been downcraft that we had recovered, by which means we either downed them ourselves, or it was an accident, or some kind of situation of that form. And then of course, it spans the spectrum. It could be like a solid like nut and bolt, It could be like a living thing that responds only to the driver or to the occupants. It could be something that could be made out of light, which is actually spoken about quite frequently. That we were able to master that or reverse engineer some aspects of that, where we were able to engineer light essentially. Um, and then also the really cool ones are the archaeological ones that they supposedly have found. And then of course throughout the news, and Russ Colhart is definitely one of those guys I like to refer to. There's some that are so large that they even built a military installation around it, if I'm not mistaken, in Korea. So there, to answer that, the short version, there's some of the technology we have. Absolutely, we reverse engineered from these other craft from across the universe. But some of that stuff, I've seen another thing. I saw an experimental drone, or I saw a military drone that I know for sure that would fool the average person to believe that was a UFO. And long story short, I was made aware that was something that they did nearby, and so I was like, oh, this is incredible, because there was no way, I've never seen anything like that. So I thought it was pretty cool. It looked like it was made of glass, but that's neither here or there. But yeah, and then as far as like the beings, yeah, it's pretty clear cut that there's biologics, and the varying levels of that. And it could be beings that were from a different constellation. It could be beings that are within the same dimension, or a parallel dimension that we share the planet with. And another an odd one, or some of the grays seem to be like a biological robot essentially. Like they have a biology, but the brain is not communicating in the classical sense. It's just there for tasks. If I'm not mistaken, some of the in the work of Dolores Cannon, some of the contactees speak about some of those beings that are not like the classical being, if you will, that are essentially like a cyborg, like an alien cyborg essentially. And back to that, so some of these beings, their biology and their 3D makeup are totally different too. They could be like 3D like us. They can kind of be like essentially like energy beings or beings of light, um and every way in between. They could be essentially, some of these beings don't have like a classical physical universe that they're from, because there's so many varying like dimensions, if you will, that we wouldn't understand how life would look like, because it's like such out of our purview, of like our understanding at the moment. We're gonna get there, but right now some of the life is so exotic. It would be hard for me to describe, even though we've had a surface level interaction with them.
It almost reminds me kind of when you was talking about that the movie Avatar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, so you wanted to talk a little bit, and I'll throw a couple of things out there for you guys. So you wanted to hit on the 11 missing scientists, and also I'll throw this in. What is your thoughts also on the Miami Mall incident?
It's all you, Jason.
Okay, so Miami Mall incident. I'll use a simile to the O'Hare Airport in Chicago, 2006. You literally have hundreds of people standing around. There's a craft there for maybe 20, maybe 15 to 20 minutes in clear sight. Every single one of those cell phones was confiscated within that area. Every single one. Hundreds of people, if not even thousands. You don't think that they can't do that in Miami? Have you met these Cubans? I'm joking. I'm Cuban. Have you met these police? Trust me,
Right.
it's not an issue. Trust me, that's somewhere in the police department, in the evidence somewhere, or somebody in a black suit got a hold of that. It is not an issue to collect video evidence. Trust me, they move fast. So that's my little 2 cents on that. That there's video evidence out there of whatever happened in Miami. Are we going to get a hold of it? Probably not. And the same with the Chicago O'Hare incident in '06. It was 06 or 08. I could be wrong. I could be mistaken in the years. But it was quite famous that there was a lot of people that videotaped that and got their phones taken away immediately. And what was the question before that? I kind of ran off on that.
The 11 missing scientists.
Okay, so I have a personal story. I'm not going to mention their name. Before I got into CE5, I'm watching an interview of Robert Bigelow I had on 2020. Robert Bigelow says, yes, yada, yada, we have extraterrestrial. This is before I watched CE5. And I'm freaking out because I'm like, this is a billionaire who's entrusted with taking pods up in and out of space, whatever. He's like the Elon Musk before Elon Musk, right? So I go to my friend, and this individual is a NASA engineer. They worked for NASA, and then they worked for Boeing after NASA got downsized. And I go to them, and I was like, "Hey, man, this isn't crazy that this guy said that there are extraterrestrials and they're right here." And I, like my human bullshit meter went off because I'm looking at her body language, and I'm asking her questions, and I'm like, "Hey, do you think this is real?" Like, and her it's going off, right? And we get home that night with my wife, and I'm like, "Man, she is lying, dude. This is crazy. She is lying." So fast forward a few years, we get into CE5, and my wife has seen it a few times, and she knows the phenomenon is real. She goes on vacation and sees her friend, and they spoke about it. And the thing that got really strange is her behavior was also erratic. And when she was asking her questions, she was nodding her head yes or no, but she wouldn't speak it. And in the middle of that, in the middle of her nodding her head through a few questions, her phone like lit up in different lights, had a sound that she had never made, or made a sound that had never made before, and had just acted discombobulated or did something with her phone. And they both had goosebumps from the experience. And the reason why I'm talking about that, where it connects with the 11 scientists, I think that these NDAs or whatever surveillance that they have on these individuals is so airtight and so scary. They probably even fear the thought of even saying it, if that makes sense. So when you're such a heavy asset, and basically when you learn to not value life, it would be easy to take care to do something bad to those people.
I 100% agree, man. I agree. I think that whenever you have, or the government or an entity, a country or something has so much money into someone or a project that you become theirs. And I've seen that happen at some companies I worked at. We had engineers where I worked, and it didn't matter what they developed or what they come up with, their own ideas. It belonged to the country, to the company. There was an agreement that it didn't matter if they come up with a better way to coat this part, right, to make it more efficient, a better computer, because there was a lot of robots where I worked. One of the places I worked was they make catalytic converters, right? So they had a lot of robots in there. You wouldn't think there was a lot of robots. The engineers were always coming up with different ways to make the robots more proficient, to run faster, to make more parts, to make more money. And if they came up with this idea, hey, we can make it do this. Well, even though they came up with that idea, the blueprint, built it and everything, it's still the company's project. It's their patent. They patent everything. It's kind of weird. It's like, man, these guys are doing all this work, coming up with all these great ideas, and are making probably billions or more dollars for these companies, and these companies are paying them pennies on the dollar, and then they're just taking their ideas and then patenting them as their own. Guys, I've had you on here over an hour and a half. I don't want to keep you much longer. If you're like me, my back starts hurting after a while. But mainly what I want to do is I want to offer y'all also to come back sometime, and we'll dive into some different parts of this and spend more time maybe in different aspects of this. And also I want you all to go ahead and, give you all the floor, and also tell everybody how to find your channel. And what we'll do is when we release this, guys, I will put the link to your channel and I will pin it in the comments to this when it releases so people can find you.
Go ahead,
Sounds
brother.
good. I guess we have a YouTube channel, Light Talk with Jason and Jordan, and it's also TikTok, Rumble, and yeah, the link will be in the description.
And if for whatever reason, one of our emails, Jason at lighttalkwithjnj.com. Or yeah, Jason with lighttalkwithjnj.com. Yeah, if you guys need to email me for whatever reason. Yeah, I would thank you for the offer, because there's a lot of aspects of CE5 that I would love to cover, from when going before, during, and afterwards, and kind of how the work kind of changes you as a person, and kind of like the possibilities that open up as a person and in your heart,
Exactly. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank y'all for being here. It's my pleasure to have you guys. It's very interesting. Thank you for your time tonight and sharing your information with us and your knowledge. You got me wondering a lot of things. I'm sure, looking up a lot of things. And like I said, we're going to have to do this again, guys. We're going to have you back, and we'll spend more time on certain areas and go a little deeper. But
Thank you, Jordan and Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us
Thank
on,
you.
man. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A lot of good information.
Yes, very exciting information.
Yeah, and hopefully we inspired you guys to not only look into it, but maybe one day, engage in it also.
Yeah, you inspired me for sure.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you all so much. I'm going to let you all run again, guys. Thank you so much for your time
guys.
tonight. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciated you guys. All right. Good night, guys. God bless you guys.
We'll see
God
you.
bless you.
Good night.
So, guys, that was an awesome time. I learned a lot. I have probably going to be doing a lot of research.
Yeah,
I
there was
lost.
a lot.
There she is.
Yep, I'm here.
A lot of questions. But I want to reiterate something on this, because I know how the audience can perceive things. I know a lot of you are going to have different beliefs and different perspectives and ideas as to what it is. I think the main point in this is to learn from the information. Knowledge is power, and to also know that no matter what we call it or what we believe it is, that it is there. And knowing that it's there, I think, gives everybody, no matter what you believe it is, a reference point. And it may even confirm or even maybe prove to some people's beliefs that it is there and it is out there, no matter what you call it or what it is. And with that being said, I'm going to let you all have your final say, as we always do. So we'll Amanda, if you want to go ahead.
I'm just going to say good night to everybody, and thanks for tuning in. And that was a great, great interview. And good night, Mike and Lisa.
All right. Good night. Thank you for being here. And Lisa, is there anything you'd like to add to tonight?
Well, I agree with you that they're definitely there. They're out there. And it was very interesting to me. I learned a lot, and I look forward to having them back. And that's it. Just good night, guys, and thanks for having me on.
All right. Everybody in chat, thank you for watching. I hope you all have learned something. I hope you've been intrigued by this, to no matter what you believe it is, to look deeper and try to learn from this. Like I said, knowledge is power. No matter what you believe it is there. And I think that's the most important thing. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight, supporting us. You know, as we always say, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And most important, guys, God bless and good night. We'll see you on the next one.
God bless.
God bless, guys. Good night.
In the heart of the night, where the shadows play, Steve and Michael begin lighting up the way. Abnormal investigations, whispers in the trees. With boots on the ground, I'm chasing mysteries. Shining lights into the dark, unveiling what's unseen. Through